So there's one thing on our agenda before we start talking about gardening, is we need to sing happy birthday to Nick. It's Nick's birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Nick. Happy birthday to you. And just a funny story, we baked a cake for Nick this morning, but it burned in the oven to a crisp. So it's out there in the lawn if anyone wants it. Gardening. I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, well that's probably why you're here for one reason. You may be thinking though, it's winter. You know, why? Why are we talking about gardening? But really, winter is the time to think about gardening. Some organic farmers and growers spend all winter planning on spreadsheets and planning exactly their crop rotations, etc. But fortunately, it's not that hard for just us amateurs. But winter is definitely the time to be thinking about it. So I thought it was a good time to talk about it. Before I go any further, you might be thinking, aren't you the marketing guy? You know, what do you know about farming? So, anyways, I just wanted to show a few pictures what I've done in the past. Not just anything, but here's where I grew up in California. You can see there's 60 acres of grapefruit on the east, and there's olives to the northwest, and oranges, and there's lemons in the hills. And so there's a lot of agriculture there. My parents had 30 acres, and they grew mandarin oranges and oats. So there's another shot and sister toast from my tree. Then I moved to the Dysinger farm, and that's Edwin Dysinger, who's going to be coming in later on. And this is a beautiful picture. They have about 6 acres under production. And they feed about, something like 120 families, pretty much all the vegetables those families eat. And so it's quite the production. You know, it's a great place to really learn stuff. You can see here one of their hoop houses, they call them. And this is actually one where they did a lot of transplanting in. And it looks like Elliot Coleman. And tomatoes. Even a little boy taking over the day, kind of a baby shot. Then Paul Schurz showed up. This man Paul, he showed up on the farm with a broken arm, but he wanted to learn how to garden. Turned out he was a millionaire from Florida, and kind of a unique, eclectic guy. But he really took to liking to me and asked me to work for him. And we started an organic farm and a little cafe, Leaper's Fort near Nashville. And it's still going today, and it's quite the place. If you're ever in Nashville, you want to go see it. A lot of the country music stars kind of hang out in Leaper's Fort. Really expensive there, but it was also a really good experience. Here's one of his greenhouses. Doesn't look quite as good as the Dysingers. Kind of some weeds a little bit, or some grass there. But that spot actually used to be a hill. And Paul hired a bulldozer to make it flat for his hoop houses. But he didn't bring enough topsoil in because there's just subsoil below, and so stuff didn't grow well the first year. Okay, just to get you guys excited about gardening, here's a study about beet juice. Has anyone heard this study? I'm sure a couple of you have. But anyways, researchers took 8 men and measured their oxygen consumption, kind of doing some exercises to get a base level on them. And then for this 6-day study, they gave them 2 glasses of beet juice every day for the 6 days. And the last 3 days, they did some more tests to see if there was any effect in the beet juice. And the athletes' times improved by 16%. But they only used 4/5 of the oxygen. So before this study, there was no known drug, substance, you name it, that improved the body's ability to extract energy from oxygen. So, people thought that X amount of oxygen equals X amount of energy. You can increase your cardiac output, you can increase your lung capacity, so you can get more oxygen to your muscles, but you can't do more with the same amount of oxygen. But this study proved it's not true, and did it with a lowly beet juice. So, just beet juice. So, 500 milliliters a day. You ever come?
Yeah. I've talked to a couple of doctors about this, and we haven't had any chance to check it out yet. But one of the most interesting possible implications of this is that, especially in geriatric care, with a lot of people who are borderline dementia, it's actually the O2 saturation in the brain. And so I would love to see a study. And there are some other plants aside from beets. Arugula turned out to be live. But yeah, they get the content in there, and it'll be, what a fantastic thing if you could bring somebody back from chronic dementia.
Yeah, who wants a shot of arugula juice? Just kidding. But yeah, dementia, that could be a great effect. Yes. Good question. I don't have that offhand. Maybe Jan knows. How many beets would it take to juice to make 1 glass of juice?
Like a glass this big?
Like 8 ounces, yeah, normal.
Maybe 3.
Maybe 3.
3 good sized beets. I don't know. I usually put just 1 little beet in with other things, so maybe 2. Depends on the size.
Yeah, maybe 2 or 3. So I actually have 60 packets of beet seeds to give away today. For those of you who haven't bought seeds yet. But we work, actually there's probably enough for almost everyone. So I'll find it after I'm done or something. If someone can grab it, that'd be great. I don't know where it is right now. But it's here. So many things I had to bring here. Okay. What are some benefits of gardening? The taste of the produce is excellent. Everyone knows that homegrown tomatoes are pretty much unbeatable. And no one even wants tomatoes from the store, if you can have something to grow at home. And of course, the taste is not the only aspect of the produce that's better for it, obviously. It's every aspect of the plant would be better with better nutrition that it starts with. And of course, a lot of produce is picked before it's even ripe. And so it doesn't get a chance to really ripen up anyways. When you raise your own produce, you really know what you're getting. You know how it grew. You know what chemicals or lack of chemicals you have on it. Of course, the health benefits are tremendous. You get fresh air, exercise, sunlight, and you, of course, yourself get better nutrition. So it's really a win-win. And then you have less transportation costs, pesticides, and less packaging to dispose of corn. The more packaging you have, you can compost. So how do you start? Of course, some of you may be long-time gardeners, but if you've never gardened before, this little section is for you. First step in my book is to plan your size of your garden and what you want to grow basically according to your size. This is a shot here in Valley Center where we have a garden here in Kansas, and you can see this is from Google Maps. Pretty accurate though, of course. You can see there's a big spot here we drew it. We found a little spot here, and a big, pretty good sized spot up here. And we actually took a big measuring tape out there and measured the size of each little plot and marked it down. So we knew how many square feet we had and mapped it out. Here's actually one of the maps that we made. It helps to have equal-sized blocks, and I'll talk about that later on. But if you can break it up into equal-sized blocks, that's great. On graph paper really helps. In order your seeds, and these are some companies that I like, that I've used, at least especially Johnny's. I pretty much buy everything from Johnny's, and they have heirloom seeds, organic seeds, and they have some hybrids. They don't have anything GMO, of course, so you're pretty safe there. They have a great reputation. But even better than their seeds almost is down here. They have a grower's library, and they have videos, great videos on how to do everything from pruning your tomatoes to, I mean, you name it, planting. And they're all done by professionals, people that have been growers themselves. And Johnny's also does large acres of test plots. And they test their different varieties to pick the right, the best strain, the best type. Here's a high-mowing seed. And then Baker Creek, they have a lot of heirloom seeds. I think that's pretty much all they have is heirloom seeds. And they have some of the more rare types that you might not find anywhere else. And pretty cool, good selection of different things. And you know, you can find tomatoes that have just weird shapes and colors, and it's pretty cool. Okay, and before, you know, I used to think, just put compost in your garden, you don't need to test it, you know, compost will fix everything. Well, almost, but not quite. So you really need to test your soil, and especially to find the pH and some other things as well. Even if your soil is deficient in just a couple micronutrients, it can really affect the quality of your plant. They can get diseases more readily if they don't have just, you know, simple nutrients, just kind of like humans does. And I asked one of my organic grower friends, and he highly recommended this company to get your soil test. And they're based out of Memphis, Tennessee, but they do have an office in Omaha. But the great thing about A&L Laboratories is that they'll email you reports of your soil test, and they have great graphics that come with your soil test that make it really easy to see what your soil is lacking and what you need, just in a format that's much easier to understand than some other companies. Okay, and add your compost until it is pretty much self-explanatory. Here's Nick and I doing some compost. We actually, this is actually newer actually. We got it from a man who had horses, and he would just charge us like $5 or $10 to scoop it into our trailer. We'd get several thousand pounds for $5 or $10, and you can't beat that. So, and it had been aged at least a year, so it was really great. And then, of course, plant water, weed, and harvest. That's kind of I lumped it together at the end there, but those are a little easier. Everyone knows that. I got a lot of information from Elliot Coleman. The Geisingers really have read his books. They have training courses for interns, and they use his books in their teaching. He's a really respected grower from Maine. So if you think it's too cold here to grow much, even in the winter, he grows year-round in Maine. And he uses unheated greenhouses. They're called, they have various names, but hoop houses, cold frames, you know. Anyways, he grows fantastic produce, and I heard once that he grows to over $100,000 on 1 acre selling his organic produce, and that's tremendous. I mean, there's no farmer that I know other than that that's got such good results. And he really has some good books, 3 of which I know of, and this is one of them, The New Organic Grower. It's kind of an all-around book on different good techniques and tips. I highly recommend it. You know, really good plants start with good soil. That's really where it starts and almost where it ends. And there are 2 main ways that people believe in taking care of soil's fertility. And you can either feed your plant or you can feed your soil. And you can feed your plant with a quick dose of chemical fertilizers, and it will grow fast and it will produce fruit. But it may not get the broad spectrum of nutrients that it really needs. And the chemicals don't last. Since they're water soluble, they're easily leached into the groundwater, they're leached into streams, lakes, and rivers. So that's really the best way is to feed the soil in a kind of an organic, sustainable way versus chemical at 45 to 50 cents per pound when the air above every acre contains 70 million pounds of free nitrogen? Shall he buy potassium at 5 to 20 cents per pound and apply 4 pounds per acre when his plowed soil already contains 30,000 pounds of potassium per acre with still larger quantities in the subsoil? Because the soil needs phosphorus, shall he employ the fertilizer factory to make it soluble and then buy it back at 12 to 30 cents a pound in an acid phosphate or complete fertilizer when you can get it for 3 cents a pound in the fine ground natural rock phosphate? And when, by growing and plowing under plenty of clover, either directly or manure, he can get nitrogen with plenty of profit from the air, liberate potassium from the inexhaustible supply of soil, and make soluble the phosphorus in the natural rock phosphate, which he can apply in abundance at low cost. I know that's a long quote, but doesn't that pretty much sum it up? I mean, there's simple, natural ways to get what plants need much cheaper, of course, and you're cutting out the middleman. This guy was an agronomist at the Illinois Experiment Station, and he did some good research. One thing that kind of ties into soil fertility is crop rotation.
More to grow out of it and also get better quality.
Oh, okay.
Some areas not that thick.
Is it a raised? Here are some things that can increase your soil fertility. Compost, like I mentioned before, is so good. I'm going to talk about it later on.
It's almost 12, 14 feet.
Manure, aged manure is really good. If you get manure fresh, you can burn your plants as too high of nitrogen content.
I don't know.
But it is really great. You can use rock phosphate, which is what this man talked about in the quote. It's phosphate containing rock at 15 to 20% phosphate. Unfortunately, it's been mined heavily by the phosphate fertilizer industry, and the supply of it around the world is decreasing. But you can still get it. It's still pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Limestone rock, of course, is lime, and that can increase the pH of your soil. So it'll take it from being acidic to more alkaline, and that's necessary. And you want a pH between 6.2 and 6.8, at least for the vegetable crops that you probably are growing in your garden. And like I said before, even a lack of 1 or 2 micro minerals in the soil can lead to problems. So you really want to get a good balance of things, and that's really where your compost, manure, and then rock dust comes in. I haven't mentioned this yet, but rock dust is just crushed rock in the dust, and it's kind of a byproduct, a waste product from quarrying, where they're cutting rock from the ground. And basalt rock is something that we don't have in Kansas, unfortunately. But basalt is one of the 2, besides granite, most common rocks in the world. And it has a wide variety of minerals in the rock. And it slowly, it's not water soluble, so it's a slow process, but it slowly will kind of decompose and leach into the soil, and it will provide a long-lasting benefit to your plants. And I know that it's not in Kansas because I called a geologist up at the Kansas Geological Survey, and he said that there are no igneous rocks in Kansas, and basalt is an igneous rock, a volcano. So that's too bad, but you can get it somewhere. You know where? Yes?
What about compost that you make yourself, like from your vegetables and?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that coming up, but that is fantastic. Compost is a king, pretty much. Okay, crop rotation. This is really key, and this is what Elliot Coleman says here. Crop rotation is the single most important practice in the multi-cropping program. So, why is that? Crops have different insects that like to eat them. They extract different nutrients from the soil. They have different root depths. like the roots grow to different depths according to the crop. And certain weeds grow better amongst certain crops than other crops. So truly, it pays to cycle your crops across the same piece of ground. And root depth is interesting. If you have like a clover or something that has roots that go lower than, say, like a lettuce or something, it's going to bring up nutrients from the subsoil, and when that plant dies, it will leave those nutrients higher in the strata, at the surface. And so then when your next crop comes along, like a lettuce, it can easily get those nutrients that otherwise would never have been available to it. So, and then like insects, of course, that's kind of obvious. Insects will really breed, especially in greenhouses. They can really breed, go out of control. And so that's one reason why you can actually do crop rotation with your greenhouses if you have a movable greenhouse in your yard. You can move the greenhouses, like that's what Ellie Coleman does, and Dicey does do that too. But yeah, you want to cycle your crops so that, if a certain pest builds up on a certain part of your ground, the next crop it might not like, so it'll just die or fly away. And legumes are particularly good for crop rotation because they have a symbiotic relationship with the bacteria that grows in the roots, or near the roots. And the bacteria take nitrogen from the atmosphere and make it, put it in the soil. That's really beneficial. So you want to make sure you have some legumes, some peas, or some beans, or clover, alfalfa to put nitrogen back in the soil. Okay, like I said before, it's good to break up your area into little blocks, equal-sized blocks, and you can put, you can take 3x5 cards and put your different crops on the 2x5 cards in graphical representations of how large of a space they'll need. So you could have a half a card for something, or you could have a couple cards for like corn or something. And then you can arrange those cards in a sequence. And I can't tell you right now because it takes too long, but certain crops are really benefited by another crop. So like say for instance, beans grow great after corn. So you want to have your beans follow your corn throughout your crop rotation. And so it's a little bit tricky, kind of, but if you use cards or something that you put your hands on, you can graphically represent, how you want your rotation to go. So, and you just have to remember that the time you spend in planning your crop rotation isn't wasted. You might spend an hour, but your crop is going to be in the ground for 6 months. And so that little bit of time you put into it will pay off. Okay, green manures. This is really key, I think, especially if you don't grow year-round, which no one probably does here. Anyways, you can sow especially a legume, which will help with your nitrogen, in your off-season. And so, when you harvest your last crop in the fall, you can sow something like rye or a clover or something like that, and it will grow. And there's really a lot of benefits for having green manures. The farmer cuts alfalfa or something. But green manures, they halt soil erosion. So your soil might wash away or blow away if you didn't have a crop on the ground. And they retain soil nutrients because your nutrients could wash away in the rain or go down at a depth your plants can't use. But that's another reason. And having a canopy of leaves over your ground instead of just bare ground will suppress weed growth. Of course, they can't grow so well without so much sunlight, and as well as the plant that you're trying to grow is taking up nutrients. Of course, you'll get them back when they die, but it keeps it out of the way of the weeds. So it's great to. We'll talk more about weeds in a minute here. And especially if they have deep roots, they can bring nutrients up to the surface for your other crops. And they improve the soil structure because if you just have your ground barren, the soil will tend to compact. But with their roots actively growing in it, roots can you know, I don't know if you've ever seen a plant growing in a rock. I mean, roots can crack rocks, and so they'll tunnel in, and they'll not only does that root itself, when it dies, it becomes organic matter trapped at a lower depth, and that is just great for your soil. But also, they're breaking up the ground, and even when they die, they leave little holes, you know, once it decomposes. So it really has a much better, a great effect on the structure of the soil. And then, of course, many of your green manures are legumes, and so you're getting nitrogen back in the soil for free or for profit, as that quote says. Because you could potentially sell the legume, you know, either like alfalfa, bale it, or bean or something, possibly sold it. I don't know how well that would work out. Okay, undersowing, and this kind of goes along with green manures a little bit, but if you don't really have an off season, you can grow your green manures along with your other crops. And I've never done this myself, but and I've never really seen it done, to be honest. But you can grow clovers are some of the best that I've read about. But after you transplant your main crop into your soil, or it's growing, you wait about 4 to 5 weeks after the crop is established, it's really going. And then you can plant like a secondary crop. You can think of an undersown crop kind of as a secondary crop, and it will kind of grow up in the understory or under the growth and the foliage of your main crop. And it will grow slower, but it will really do the weeds in because the weeds will have almost no sunlight to get to. And your undersown crop, if it's a legume, which in most cases it's going to be putting nitrogen back in the soil as your main crop is probably taking it out. So you're really getting a good symbiotic relationship. You just don't want to start your undersown crop too soon, of course, because it might overpower your main crop. That would be really bad. You have a bad case of weeds. Okay. How many of you have heard that it's best not to even till your garden? Okay. Yeah, there are some growers and amateurs as well that don't till their ground. They say it kills the worms and it's really bad for it. And I actually somewhat agree, although it's hard to do that when you're starting out. There are some positives about not tilling your ground. It's less work, of course, and it does kill less worms and less microbes, which are very beneficial to your ground, of course. And if you do it correctly, you can still have organic matter in your subsoil. You can have that good soil structure, not because you broke it up with a plow, but because you broke it up with the roots of the plants. And so it really can be very good, but you have to follow good practices like crop rotation and the other different practices, because if you just leave the earth bare or something, it'll get hard, and you'll have to till somehow. But until you really get your soil really that great, you're going to have to do some tilling probably. And this is a picture of what it's called a broad fork. And this is a picture from Johnny's website, actually. And it's good for the size of gardens we probably have. And the Dicingers use it in their commercial operation. They use it especially in their hoop houses, their greenhouses, if you will. And it's basically like an overgrown pitchfork. And you just put it down and jump on it or step on it if you're heavy enough. I did a lot of jumping. And anyways, it pushes it in the ground, and then you pull backwards, and it breaks up the soil. And the cool thing about a broad fork over a rototiller is that it doesn't mix the soil layers. You don't take your great topsoil and put it down lower, where it's less available. It keeps the soil structure intact. And you can't really see, of course, from this guy, but he's working backwards. You go backwards, and so you don't leave any tracks. It covers up your tracks. So it's really a pretty good little tool. And rototillers are good too. Okay, here's some on compost. Compost is truly the king. It has nitrogen, potassium, and pretty much every micronutrient that your plants need because, of course, it was plants at one time. You really need about 20 tons per acre of compost. So you're probably saying, I don't even have an acre of plants. But anyways, to put it in our terms like what we would use, that's 0.9 pounds per square foot. So you just round that to 1 pound per square foot. So if you have a 15 by 20 foot garden, which is a pretty good sized little patch, that would be 270 pounds. So, you know, anyways, you can calculate for your area. But with compost, you really need basically a 50-50 mix of green and brown material. And this isn't really complicated, and it's not rocket science. You don't have to calculate by weight or anything like that. It's really pretty much broad reckoning, you say. But brown material, some examples of brown material are leaves, twigs, paper, pretty much anything that's brown, pretty much. And green material, a little more complicated, my wife told me when I was going over this. Green grass clippings are obviously green and they fall into this category, but also manure and kitchen scraps, which manure is kind of green, but sometimes. And but kitchen scraps, of course, can be any multitude of colors. And you want to mix them in kind of thin layers. And you want to keep it moist. And you can find complicated little machines on the internet to try to help you compost. And there's a lot of turning involved, and it's really too complicated for me. So this is what Elliot Coleman suggests in his book, is this straw bale enclosure here. And you want to, when you put the straw bales together, you want to leave little gaps between the ends of the bales to let oxygen in. And you add these in thin layers, only a few inches thick. And after every green layer, you can sprinkle on topsoil. And you shouldn't need to turn the pile, he says. And in a year or a year and a half, they'll be ready. So you might want to get started. Okay, James, you want to text Edward? That would be great. Okay, in Kansas, I never thought about windbreaks much until it was here because it wasn't much of a problem, but man, both gardens we've had so far here in Kansas have really been dried out by the wind. It just really dries out the plants and knocks them over too. It was pretty tough. But this is a little sketch I drew myself here. You don't need to clap. Anyways, you can see here there's a 5-foot fence on the left side of the screen, and a windbreak can have an effect for up to 20 times its height. So it can have a pretty good effect, and you might want to round in favor of a shorter effect just to make sure, but you want to have a density of about 60 to 80%. So 20 to 40% of that fence needs to be like clear area where wind can blow through. I used to think that it'd be great to have a solid wall going in your garden, but I guess scientists have studied it. The wind kind of goes over and rolls, and it'll come right back down into your garden. So you want to have a fence that's not solid. It needs to have some spot for the air to go through. And that way it'll really protect the crop as well. Well, Kansas, you want it on your southwest, I'd say. Isn't that correct? Wind blows in the southwest almost all the time. Most of the time. Of course, you can kind of do your own study possibly, but here it's pretty much flat. Wind blows to the southwest. Okay, what about weeds? Properly conducted weeding is more of an art and even a passive process than an arduous task. And the key really, and all the organic farms I've been on, is they really try to get the weeds when they're young. We're talking they're barely sprouted. And that makes it not only easier to kill them, but you can just go so fast. You can go through, and I'm going to show you some tools that can really help. But also mulching. You can put straw or wood chips in your garden, and I know several of you have done that in your own gardens. But if you cover the soil, of course, weeds can't get air, sunlight, and all that good stuff. And so that can really help. But the key really to weeds is preventing them from going to seed. And Elliott Coleman cites a study that focused on the top 9 inches of soil, and no weeds were allowed to grow until they went to seed. And there was no deep tillage in the soil that could bring new seeds up from the subsoil. And every year, the amount of viable weed seeds declined between 22 and 36%. And there were hardly any new weed sprouts after the 4th year. So weeding can really pay off, especially if you have a larger area. Because the larger area you have, of course, you have less, circumference where the weeds can be creeping in from the wind or just growing like we have a lot of Bermuda at our house, and it's really nasty stuff. It grows, and it's really tough to eradicate. Okay, so before you have a perfect garden and no weeds in it, there are some tools here. This is what's called a collinear hoe.